Well, Rich, the time has finally come. We're getting around to reviewing the movie that's just been demanded of us for years now. People are just, every video, comment after comment, when are you guys going to get around to reviewing the 1980 live-action Popeye film? And we're finally doing it. We're giving the people what they want.
It's the little movie.
The little movie
that
people say, I kind of remember watching that on cable.
It kind of did, yeah. I was driving around with Karen the other day. We're going to get something to eat, and there was somebody crossing the street, and tall woman with dark hair. Karen said, "She would make a great olive oil." And it's like not, you didn't even think about it. I said, the only person who should ever play olive oil is Shelley Duvall.
I was going to say, that's really the only reason to discuss this film.
Yeah.
It's just going to be the Shelley Duvall discussion. No one in the entire history of cinema has ever been better cast in anything ever.
I mean, that is an understatement. The Shining's great.
Yeah.
The Shining's great. Shelley Duvall was born to play olive oil.
She was birthed into this world for one thing and one thing only.
For that purpose. It's the reason the universe exists. God created the universe so that Shelley Duvall could play olive oil in a live-action musical adaptation of a cartoon that was really a comic strip that nobody remembers.
Well, that's the point to start, I guess. Popeye. At this point, he's kind of like Garfield, where it's been in pop culture so long, people just accept that it's a thing that they know a little bit about, but nobody cares about. It's like Garfield.
I like Popeye.
Okay.
I like Popeye. I'm old enough to remember when they would air Popeye cartoons on TV.
Well, because there was around shortly before this movie, there was like an animated Popeye series, and that was kind of popular at the time. But the character had been around in comics since like the 50s, 60s?
No, God.
40s?
Nope.
30s?
Nope.
The Stone Age?
Popeye was created in 1929.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
The comic strip he was in was created in 1919.
Okay. I know he wasn't originally, it was like an Urkel situation.
Yes, Popeye is the Steve Urkel of comic strips. There was this comic strip called Thimble Theater. Popeye did not exist. The main characters of Thimble Theater was Olive Oil, her brother Castor Oil, and her boyfriend, a character called Ham Gravy.
Was this all like something like Bazooka Joe, where it's just on like the packaging for some sort of food product?
It was in newspapers. It was only in like 12 newspapers. It wasn't very popular.
Is he in the movie? Does that character still exist?
That's the brother.
His name is Castor Oil?
Yes.
I didn't even notice.
I think. Now, I'm not.
Everyone in the movie mumbles and talks over each other, so I couldn't keep track of anyone's names.
Haul ass. They're on the mile body. Come on.
Now, I think, but I'm not sure, but the guy who's like keeps kicking his own hat, the goofy, lanky guy.
Yeah.
I think that's supposed to be the Ham Gravy character.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
A little Easter egg for the Popeye heads out there.
Yeah, I think.
All the true fans.
I think if you watch this movie and you're not like Gen Z, because if you're Gen Z, you're saying, who the fuck is Popeye? But if you're our generation, you're familiar with Popeye, and you don't know who any of these other characters are, and if you watch this movie as like a child in the 80s, you're probably confused, like, who are these fuckers?
Yeah.
And they're all obscure characters from this comic strip, this pre-Depression era comic strip.
Yeah, older, like compared to like a Garfield, where people now are just like vaguely aware of Garfield. There's like that one weirdo that knows everything about Garfield and has like shelves of Garfield's collectibles. There's probably still someone out there like that for Popeye, but they're rare and they're dying off, thank God.
One thing I remember about my pap was he always used to throw me up in the air, but he'd never be there when I come down, you know.
You fast forward 50 years to like 1980, and you know what the origin of this movie is?
It was like a race to beat Annie?
Paramount Pictures of what I'm like not an expert, but I think Paramount Pictures
You're
they lost.
You're a secret Popeye expert,
know.
aren't you?
They failed to get the rights for the Annie musical. It was like they couldn't get that.
Yeah.
And so they're sitting around in the boardroom and they're steaming, and the executive's like, well, what other Depression era comic strip do we have the rights to?
It's what we always talk about, the executives that sit around the boardroom saying, what else do we got?
Yeah.
What can we dig up for nostalgia? And we're going back to 1980, and that's already a thing.
We got the rights to Popeye, sir. Make it so. Greenlight the Popeye musical.
That's because you watched this movie as a kid. You said you loved it as a kid, right?
Here's the backstory for me. This might be one of the first movies I can remember seeing, period.
That might be the case for me, too.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like I have vague memories of seeing it on TV as a kid. You loved it, though.
I grew up, we had it on VHS, and I watched it a lot. When I was young, I would watch it constantly. It was one of 3 movies that were out at the time on VHS. I don't know.
Do you think that contributed to why you loved it?
It might have.
It was your only knowledge of movies.
Yes.
Because I watched it as a kid, and I remember being mostly confused in a way that I couldn't articulate because I was a little kid.
What confused you?
The tone of it, the style of it. I mean, in rewatching it, it starts. It's like dead silence, and there's like ambient noise as he's coming up to shore. This children's movie.
A gloomy, musicless thunderstorm.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize that it was co-produced by Disney, and I saw the Disney Company logo show up at the opening. I was like, oh, I didn't realize. I had no memory of that. But so it's mostly just, and also, like I said, all the muttering and mumbling.
Nothing goes on this bed.
Oh, sorry, that was just some...
What's that lamp?
Let me give you some assistance here. Give me a hand there. That's it. Yeah, here we go.
And people talking over each other, and like tonally, all things I couldn't explain as a kid, that now I can all completely attribute to 4 words, which is directed by Robert Altman. For some reason, this movie is directed by one of cinema's premier auteur filmmakers who had a very distinct style.
One of the classic 70s guys.
Came up in the 70s, and this is one of those movies where you really see that divide between what movies in the 70s were versus what is going to be, what the 80s are going to become. It's like First Blood. Like I remember the first Rambo movie. That's it has some of that loner, gritty 70s character-driven stuff, but then it's also kind of an action movie, which is on the verge of turning into schlock. And that's this movie. It's like I've never seen a movie where it's so clear, oh, the 70s are done.
I remember I watched this and thinking how awkward some of the action stuff is.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because, Robert Altman famously did...
MASH is probably the most famous thing?
MASH, which went on to be a popular TV show in, Nashville. He was really good with, actors, big ensemble casts and actors talking over each other. Very, loosey-goosey, natural, not a lot of, forward story momentum. So you take that, and that's all prevalent in this Popeye movie? Why did he direct a Popeye movie?
I wasn't afraid of the water. Got 8 to 5 on. Clean up on him, Popeye.
There's one scene early on when Popeye gets, it's kind of like a Western setup. Like the guy comes to town and he's sort of a mysterious stranger. And he boards at the Olive Oil family house. And there's that dinner table scene, and they're all coming and going, and it's very well choreographed, when someone stands up and someone sits down, and Popeye just wants to eat.
Chop up his mouse.
Oh, Mr. I, have you met Pop, Mr. Wimpy, my son Castor, Mr. Giesel, my husband Cole? We're all one big happy family here, although not really.
And it goes on for a really long time, and everybody's mumbling and talking over each other, and it's like a classic Robert Altman scene, but it's in a Popeye movie. And there's no jokes, and it's not funny. It's just so baffling.
Real appetizing.
Oh, I want a fork right beside your plate. If it was a knife, it would cut you. And a knife. You sit
Why don't I have a
down,
knife
Mr.
and a nice
I,
dress?
please?
Here's another odd choice. I have heard that Robert Altman did not want Robin Williams to improvise.
That kind of shows in the movie. Robin Williams, this is his first movie. He got famous for Mork and Mindy, and this was his first film.
I was wondering if this is the very first, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe like a bit part in something, but first like starring vehicle after the success of his popular TV show Mork and Mindy. And Robin Williams, of course, very talented man, very skilled actor, and lots of range, can do lots of things. And in this movie, he's saddled to playing Popeye, almost by design, completely one-dimensionally. He has nothing to do but do the Popeye voice.
Now, maybe you swabs can pool your intelligence and sees that I'm asking you for an apology.
Well, he doesn't do it during the entire movie because 90% of his performance is ADR.
Because it was more mumbly originally.
I mean, yeah, to be fair, that's what Popeye does.
I know.
Popeye mumbles.
And Robin Williams does that well, but that's all he really gets to do.
Just take that. Oh, my madam. I'm just disgusted.
I've seen a room done an early demolition before, but this'll do for me.
Now you're facing east to late, maybe a little southwest. Place your bets. You need some help with your bags, huh?
And then he's got seen it in live action, his arms, those goofy big Popeye arms that look great in comic form. When you put it in like this weird naturalistically shot realistic movie, they look like ghoulish. They have little tiny realistic hairs on them. It's so bizarre looking.
I think they work.
I mean, the makeup is great, but I think that's the whole thing, is that contrast between that naturalistic Robert Altman style and then there'll be like a goofy boink sound effect.
I do love some just like the art direction of this movie, the sets.
That's
like they built that freaking town.
They built the entire. I didn't know this. Yeah, I mean it's very clearly like a designed little town they'd made for the movie, but I guess it still exists because they built not only the exteriors. These aren't just like facades for the movie. They built the interiors and shot the whole movie in those actual interiors, which is like unheard
That's crazy.
of. That's unheard of now.
Sounds like it would have been crazy for the time too.
Yeah, I suppose, especially for like a Popeye movie.
Like, didn't this movie go over budget by like a ton?
I would imagine
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Because this is, again, late 70s Coke-fueled business decisions being made. Notorious producer Robert Evans was responsible for it. But they, just built this entire town, and the set design is great. The costumes are great. Everything's kind of great except for the movie.
The extras are great.
All the extras are doing their thing.
All these people in the background, they feel like their own characters that have their own things going on.
Yeah, it feels like there's life outside of just what's in the frame, which I guess goes along with the kind of more character-driven Robert Altman stuff. Ironically, though, everyone except for the lead characters. Yeah. Because like, there's a couple moments, the plot of the loose plot of the movie, because this thing is 2 hours long, and not a whole lot happens. But the loose plot is Popeye. It's the origin story of Popeye. This is the Batman Begins of the Popeye universe. He shows up in this town. What's it called?
Sweet Haven. The song, Jay. Don't
know,
you remember the song?
I'm sweltering under this 130-degree heat back here. Popeye shows up in the town of Sweet Haven. He meets Olive Oyl.
He walks through town. Everybody's afraid of this weird stranger who's come in.
It's very like Western, which is weird.
Yeah.
But then they find a baby, and him and Olive Oyl kind of become the surrogate parents for the baby. But also Popeye's looking for his long-lost father, and Bluto's mad because Bluto was Olive Oyl's boyfriend. And that's kind of all that's happening in the movie. But there's a couple moments between like Robin Williams, Shelley Duvall, and the baby, where there's like a little glimmer of some sort of like heart. It's very fleeting.
But it's hard to do that when you're also trying to do the Popeye and Olive Oyl voices.
Right.
Why, he's me Sweet Pea. I am calling him Sweet Pea, and that is his name. Ain't that the truth?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, Sweet Pea's about the worst name I ever heard on a baby.
Well, what do you want me to call him? Baby Oil?
Yeah, you got to get like Joe Dante in there to direct a live-action cartoon movie or something. But
They should have done a cartoon.
They should have just done a cartoon movie.
Are you familiar with the? I'm gonna pronounce his name wrong. The Cartoon Network guy, Gendy.
Gendy Tarkovsky.
Tarkovsky. Yeah, the guy who did that Clone Wars cartoon show everyone loves. I think he did Samurai Jack.
Yeah, I remember. There was.
Have you seen the bit he did for Popeye?
I know he made like test footage
for Sony Pictures. Have you ever seen it?
I probably saw it when it first leaked like 10 years ago. Not since.
It's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing, and I think like Sony just passed on it and said they wanted to make Hotel Transylvania 7.
Well, that's a safer bet because, as we've already established, nobody cares about Popeye anymore.
Yeah.
But maybe that could have breathed new life.
It
into
would have.
Popeye.
It looked fun.
Sure, yeah. That's it's kind of like what I've always said about the Spider-Man movies, where it's like every time he jumps off a building, he turns into a CG character to the point where you're like, why don't you just make an animated movie? And eventually they did, finally. But yeah, just the decision to make this a live-action movie and then hire the director they did, like none of it comes together. It's very like meandering. Even the music.
It's got to be just like Annie, Jay.
It's a hard knock life for us. It's a hard knock life for us. No one cares for you, us bitch, when you're in an orphanage.
Blow me too. But I'm like the clothes I wear. I haven't careful there.
He's tall, good looking, and he's large.
Fred and Ginger spinning madly.
I am what I am, and that's all that I am. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man.
The sun will come out tomorrow, so you gotta hang on till tomorrow.
Annie's a musical.
Did they have like a spy on the set of Annie?
Annie's a musical. They gotta make a musical. That's why you get all those bangers in this. Like he's large.
He's virile, and he's strong. He's strong.
And then the other banger, food, food, food.
Yeah.
And then there's the other great song, I am what I am, 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 I am. And then there's the other song, I mean.
Broke my nose, I broke my hand, I wrestled myself to the ground, and then I choked myself to death and broke the choke.
I mean.
That's the weirdest thing. The songs are just like the movie itself, which is they're so like rambly and structureless.
I'm mean. Meaner than... I sure am mean.
Like a musical, you want those like big rousing, you want a hook, you want verse, chorus, maybe a bridge. And all the songs in this movie, almost all the songs in this movie are just like nothing but chorus. And they just kind of like meander, and then eventually they get bored with them and move on to another scene. And then the second half of the movie, like a song will end, and 30 seconds later, another song starts.
Now, if you were to film a musical, Jay, what would be your priority? What would you do first? What would the first thing you do? What would it be?
Well, make sure you got catchy songs.
You do the songs first, right?
Yeah.
No. He filmed this before they recorded the songs. They might have knew what the songs were going to be.
Oh.
But like they actually like properly record the music. Like they're stuck with what they filmed, and they got to match that.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because I know they hired Harry Nilsson, who was a well-regarded musician from the 60s and 70s. The one song I like, and I associate it more with another movie, is Shelley Duvall's solo "He Needs Me" song.
Oh yeah.
He needs me, 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 he needs me.
It's very like sweet and melodic, and it does have a chorus and verses. But it was repurposed in the Paul Thomas Anderson movie Punch Drunk Love with Adam Sandler. Used the whole song because Paul Thomas Anderson's a big fan of Robert Altman. And so now whenever I hear that song, I associate it more with that movie than with the movie it was actually made for.
So is it jarring when you watch this?
It is a little jarring. Well, it's also weird because it's the same in Punch Drunk Love. It's the same song. It's Shelley Duvall singing, but they replaced the one line by Popeye. So in the actual movie, it's Robin Williams.
Because they never needed me.
But I do.
But he does.
But they replaced him with Adam Sandler for just that one line.
Because they never needed me. But he does.
Popeye is the last character I would make a musical for.
Hey, you talk like this,
Yeah.
Don't make a musical for that character.
Well, that's why he doesn't.
Voyles, he talks like, yeah, let's make a musical.
Let's have one of the musical numbers for this children's film set in a whorehouse.
It's also a betting parlor.
Why is any of that in the movie? There's a whole little like side tangent where they make Wimpy watch Sweet Pea the baby, and he takes her to because Sweet Pea has like clairvoyance or something?
That's why that exists. They needed to establish that Sweet Pea has clairvoyance, and Bluto needed to find out that Sweet Pea has clairvoyance so that Bluto has a reason to kidnap Sweet Pea to find Pappy's hidden treasure.
When was the treasure introduced?
At the point where Bluto kidnapped Sweet Pea.
That was not something that was established earlier in the film.
I think somebody might have said something about the Commodore having a treasure. I don't know. The Commodore's very in the background until...
The whole movie feels like they just made it up as they went along. Like, there's no structure. I mean, there's a very flimsy story, but there's not a lot of, like, structure to the story or individual scenes.
Yes.
It's like, oh, I guess we're just moving on to the next thing now. Which, again, that's Robert Altman's style, and that's fine for a like, character drama, but not a live-action cartoon.
Don't make them like they used to.
There's some fun stuff in here, though. There's some fun stuff.
There is. There's lots I admire.
The boxing scene is fun.
Anytime you throw in a dummy around, I'm happy. So it's jarring with the kind of look of the rest of the movie.
Popeye rolling down the ramp.
Yeah, he gets punched by Bluto. He rolls down the ramp, and then he like spirals through the bottom of the pier. Like stuff like that is fun.
Popeye punching out a very young Dennis Franz.
Yeah, that was weird seeing him in this.
Yeah. I didn't know who he was when I was 3.
Yeah.
Watching it now, I was like, oh, weird.
It's a Psycho connection because he's in Psycho 2 and Nana Oil, whatever.
I don't know if they mentioned that in the movie, but I know that's the comic strip name.
Okay.
So,
but she's in Psycho 3.
Oh.
So, yeah, a little Psycho connection for some reason.
Don't think I blames you, 'cause I don't. Nope.
This at least had a lot of ambition. There's artistry to it, even though I think it's totally at odds with what a Popeye movie probably should be.
I mean, totally, what should a Popeye movie be?
Fun? not the whole movie shouldn't be brown.
I'm fascinated by the setting and the costumes and these weird shacks that everybody has. And like, when does this movie take place? I have to assume like Depression era. It's like bizarrely otherworldly and timeless.
Yeah, and Robin Williams being dubbed through the whole movie kind of adds to that. Again, it makes it feel like an Italian movie or something. Like, there's such a weird disconnect between all the like muttering and mumbling and.
How do you feel about the boat sequence?
The climax of the movie?
Even before that, like when the whole family is on the boat running around.
Oh God!
Haul ass. They're on the mile body. Come on.
And it's all in one wide shot.
And they're just like they're all talking over each other.
You know what I wrote down in my notes?
Did you write down Robot in the Family?
I wrote down Robot in the Family.
I was also thinking of Robot in the Family.
Go digger. I equals 3.142 MC squared. I'm running out of power.
Shut up! The whole movie kind of felt like that scene specifically is where it like cemented where I specifically was thinking of Robot in the Family, but the whole movie has that thing that kind of like, well, there has to be constant noise.
And a bad time once in a while when you try to give them a bath and they don't want it.
Oh, it's
Maybe it makes sense
Mr.
now, but maybe
Mr.
later.
Pop, we must
Oh, that
try and
does
talk
look good,
all
doesn't
about
it?
of her engagement,
Wish I had a
Mr.
plate,
Wimpy.
If no one's talking, just dub over Robin Williams murmuring about nothing. And like, yeah, and then throwing some goofy sound effects here and there. It's like they were doing what they could to I guess make it feel like a live action cartoon, even though it doesn't look like one. When I think of like a cartoon, I think of especially, I guess not so much Popeye. I'm not as familiar with the Popeye like cartoons, but in general, cartoons are so reliant on like pacing and timing, like comedic timing. And there's none of that in this. Things just kind of happen.
There's a lot of slapstick. Olive Oil has rubbery joints, and Popeye and Pluto punch each other a lot.
Yeah, which I guess is the kernel of what the entire idea is.
visual gags usually involved around Popeye punching something that a normal person shouldn't be able to successfully punch.
It is a letdown. The end of the movie, the climax of the movie, they're all racing to the treasure because Bluto wants the treasure. And then the whole, again, this is Popeye's origin story. So as we learn throughout the movie, he doesn't like spinach.
Eat that spinach, you brat.
I don't want to eat that.
You eat that spinach.
His
They
dad-
mentioned that once, Jay. They mentioned that once.
And then they forgot about it because everybody
it.
was stoned when they were making it. But that's the idea. Is like, yeah, Ray Walston is Popeye's dad. He was always trying to get him to eat his spinach. He didn't like spinach. So at the end of the movie, for no real reason, Bluto like forces him to eat spinach. I guess to torture him.
because he's a jerk. He learns that Popeye doesn't like spinach, and he's
Yeah.
like, "Well, you don't like spinach, do you?" Yeah, take that spinach.
Force feeds him spinach, and then you're like, oh, we're gonna get our big Bluto fight scene.
And it's over in half a second.
He punches him once, and then that's it.
He also punches an octopus.
He fights the octopus more than Bluto.
I know. It's kind of a letdown.
Yeah.
It missed the mark. It missed the mark on the big Bluto fight at the end of the movie.
This is
Robin Williams is almost a major action star, Jay, but they bungled that.
Yeah.
He's just going to have to settle for being a timelessly famous comedic actor who also does drama and not an action hero.
So good for him, even though I don't like this movie and will never ever watch it again.
I don't know that I'll ever watch it again. I'll go that far. I don't know that I'm ever going to watch this again. I still like this movie. I find it weird.
Yeah, it's an
in an interesting way.
It's an interesting like misfire.
It's my feelings for this outside of the I watched this when I was young nostalgia tinge, which that's there.
Sure.
Some of the songs in this, even though I watch this now, the songs are terrible, but they hit something in the back of my lizard brain.
Oh, really?
But I think in general, the way I feel about this movie is similar to how I feel about like Nothing But Trouble.
Okay.
Yeah. Nothing But Trouble is terrible. It's interesting.
Yeah.
This movie is interesting.
It's almost like both of those movies are almost like how did this happen kind of situation. Like,
yeah.
This isn't quite as much of a bizarre mess as Nothing But Trouble, but
They've made some interesting choices here.
yeah. That no one would ever make again.
Yeah.
No one would ever make a Popeye movie like this now. It'd be interesting though, because Paul Thomas Anderson, he stole the song for Punch Drunk Love. He's heavily inspired by Robert Altman. So now you have Paul Thomas Anderson make a new Popeye movie.
Just a full circle.
Just a full circle. Just
the
try it
cycle
again.
continues. Who does Bill Murray play?
Oh, that's Wes Anderson.
Oh, it's Wes Anderson. Never mind. Strike
Actually,
that.
Wes Anderson would be a genuinely good choice to make a modern Popeye movie. I could see that. His sort of dollhouse approach to the town.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
works. It's an interesting anomaly. There's obviously much worse movies out there. It's the Popeye movie from 1980. It happened for some reason.
It'll never happen again.
It'll never happen again.
Good? Bad? I don't know.